The news is moving fast. By the time you hear or see this, wherever you get podcasts, Donald Trump may well have been arrested. We'll get into that from all angles and implications coming up. We'll also update interesting legislation moving forward across the country and take a look at the current state of policing in America. Some interesting stuff on that. All of that, plus the news of the day on this episode of Dale Carter's America.
From the heart of flyover country, he's not on the far right, and he's certainly not on the far left. Like you, he's somewhere in the middle. This is Dale Carter's America.
I'm Dale Carter with Kurt Wheeler, and at the top, we always like to thank our various sponsors that we have. They're the ones who are paying for all of this so that we can bring it to you. But you're very important in the equation as well, and I'll tell you how you can help here in just a second. But first, Bob Watson, of course, State Farm agent for 5 decades. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. He's ready to take a look at all of your coverages, and with a real human and a real staff in Blue Springs at 816-229-7878. Not just Blue Springs. He's licensed in Missouri and Kansas as well. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance. Bob can handle your insurance from any angle. And again, a great staff that's going to be there to answer your questions, take your phone calls. You will not be left on a life raft somewhere when you really need your insurance agent. Bob Watson will take care of you. Royal Roofing and Solar will make sure that your house doesn't leak and may well be an energy producer. 816-540-7057. Austin Watterson and his family, they've been in the roofing business and the remodeling business for a very long time, situated right there in Cass County. And they got into solar as well, and they'll show you how, if it makes sense for your house, you can put solar on top of it, and you'll generate your own utilities. You won't be at the mercy of the electric company or the gas company. And as far as inflation goes, you'll keep all that in check as well. Tax credits and grants for small and rural business and ag producers as well. This is National Farm Week. Did you know that, Kurt?
I did not.
All right. Well, now you do. So all you farmers out there, friends of yours who are farmers, they can get tax credits and grants as well. And Royal Roofing and Solar can show you how to get that done at 816-540-7057. Funhouse Pizza with 2 great locations in eastern Jackson County. Of course, they're in Lee's Summit on 50 Highway, in Blue Springs on 7 Highway. They are ready and set up to host whatever party you want, or maybe it's just taking the family out for pizza and some cold drinks. They've got fun games. Fun's in the name, so it's implied that you're going to have a good time when you're at Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit and Blue Springs. Jim Dingman, of course, one of our fine sponsors here. He owns the place. Just make sure you pull your pants up before you go in. And coming soon, we'll have another live event at Funhouse Pizza. I think Lee's Summit, it's your turn for the live event, so we'll get back to you on that. Probably next month is when we're looking at doing that.
Oh.
Did you not know that?
No.
Do we not share information? Do I need to send you a memo once in a while?
Yeah. Put it in the mail.
Fine. All right. And Kurt's on the young side, but if you're 45 or older, you need to get your colonoscopy. You got to get the screening because Dr. Mark Taormina and his entire staff at Midwest GI Health in Lee's Summit, they can find colon cancer while it's treatable and save your life. I mean, this podcast, Kurt, it's a lot of pressure on our shoulders, but we could save your life.
Exactly.
Isn't that amazing?
All you have to do is listen and do everything that we tell you.
Exactly. So, get your roof replaced, go have some pizza at Funhouse, make sure Bob Watson's your insurance agent, and then get with the folks at Midwest GI Health at MidwestGIHealth.com, 816-836-2000. They will take care of all of your GI needs. Dr. Mark is a great guy. One of the things that we do with the sponsorship is we give these folks an opportunity to come on and talk about their business and all that, and he's just so busy, Kurt, we can't nail him down on a time.
Yeah, it's been tough.
Yet he'll send me texts all the time, says he loves being part of the podcast. He likes me more than you, but that's, because I'm in the demo. I'm in the age where you need to...
He's just telling you that so that you'll come in for a colonoscopy.
Oh, has he told you something different?
No,
okay.
I'm just saying,
All right. Before we get into everything, we've done all the business part, right?
Yeah.
So I was on a plane last week to Nashville. It's why you had... our officer Doug Heisman from Blue Springs talking about Citizens Police Academy. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. So I was in Nashville for a conference, and I don't like to fly. I think I've made that pretty clear. Mm-hmm. I don't. It's just not natural, right? It's not natural to be on something that weighs that much, that high up in the air. It's just not natural. Yeah. So I get a book, and I don't really want to be bothered and all that. I just want to get into the book and not think about what's happening around me. But the young lady next to me strikes up a conversation because she's very friendly like that, right? Mm-hmm. Her name is Lisa Schifferdecker. Okay, and she
say that 5 times fast.
Well, I can't. Lisa Price. That's her. I know her maiden name, Lisa Price, and then she married some guy named Schifferdecker, and she's stuck with that, at least for now, right? So anyway, I'm kidding.
He must be a really good guy.
I'm kidding. So she's sitting next to me, and she says, "Why are you going to Nashville?" I said, "I'm going to a convention." "Oh yeah, what do you do?" "Well, I run a country music station." "Really? Which one?" "KFKF." "Oh my God, you're Dale Carter," right? And it's not about the radio station, although she does listen. "I love your podcast."
All right.
And she pulls up her phone and says, "Look, this is the episode I'm listening to right now."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, okay. Well, you've got to come to, when we do the thing at Funhouse in Lee Summit," because I think she lives in Lee Summit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they're definitely going to come to that. She goes, "Yeah, I've been listening to your podcast. I'm thinking about making Bob Watson my insurance agent. I'm going to call Austin Watterson, have him tell me about this solar thing, and, call Dr. Mark and get that whole call." At that point, I really didn't need to know all that, right? The details there. But Lisa, welcome to Dale Carter's America. And this is where you can come into this, because we have our sponsors. They do what they do. You can spread the word, because word of mouth really is going to make this thing grow faster than anything else. If you tell 10 people that you know who kind of think the way that we do, hey, these guys are saying things that we believe, we'll grow the podcast. And that's what we need to do at Dale Carter's America. You can get us wherever you get podcasts. Tell people that. Some of you already know. Some of you know better than I do. You can get it, the visual version of it, if you want to see our pretty faces and see all the clips that we're going to share on YouTube and Rumble. And then basically anywhere you get the audio version of it, it's free. And it's also available at kfkf.com. Okay, top of the news here. And we'll get to the Trump stuff later. But something that really concerns me is China and Russia meeting. Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, for sure.
We have a video that shows the pomp and circumstance. There you go. Wow. Can I get that when I go to Lee Summit to Funhouse Pizza? Will you get some guards to open the door and I'll march in, everybody will salute me? Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, this is the part I said before, you're not going to like this, but this is so cool. This is just awesome. It's like, I mean, obviously it's meaningless. It's just for show, but, just look at the room. It's beautiful. There's a band playing, they do the whole thing.
And you know why it's so beautiful? That goes back to Tsarist Russia, right?
Yeah.
At least the communists didn't tear everything down, right?
Right.
They kept some of that. So are they going to shake hands? Is there a secret handshake? I don't know.
No, but I noticed Putin has this handshake that he does. You know how everyone kind of has their own type of handshake?
Yeah.
Like he does the thing where he comes in high. He's
high.
Comes in like that.
We know why, because he's short. He's got short man syndrome.
See, he puts his hand way up there.
Yeah, but look, she's so much taller than he is.
Yeah.
He's got short man syndrome.
And she's Chinese, so he's probably not even that tall.
No, so that tells you how short Vladimir Putin is.
Yeah.
All right, get rid of all that stuff. So here's my problem with it. An alliance between China and Russia is not good for America. And something I learned a long time ago is nature abhors a vacuum. And right now, the world has a leadership vacuum because Joe Biden is the president of the United States. And he's going downhill fast, Kurt. I mean, it's like every day when I see him speak at something, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And he says he's going to announce soon that he's going to run for president in 2024. Does anybody believe that? Is there a Democrat who believes that Joe Biden is up to the job right now and he's got 2 more years to go?
Well, I'm not a Democrat, but I believe it. I believe that he'll run again. I mean, until they, I mean, it's working, right? Like he has power. Obviously he's not the one really running things, but He has power, and until something changes and he physically can't do the job anymore, or at least physically can't pretend to do the job anymore, why wouldn't he?
And they've got no bench. I mean, they've got Kamala Harris, and she can't run for president. That's laughable. Gavin Newsom, let's have that argument over everything you've done to California. You want to do that to America? I'm okay having that argument, and there's really not anybody else. So that's why we need a leader in the White House, and I don't know, we can wait 2 years for it.
Yeah.
It's scary times right now. When China and Russia are getting together, it's not to our benefit. And I'm coming around to where you are, Kurt. I'm sick of us funneling stuff to Ukraine with a bottomless pit. We have no idea how we're ever going to get out of that.
Yeah.
And we're fighting a proxy war against Russia is what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, like I said to you in a text yesterday, I mean, we're pushing Russia into China's outstretched arms. And, you can just look at the body language when these two met. And this is, there's a bunch of clips from the meeting that you can look up, but this is when they left. They each have translators. She says there are changes going on now that haven't happened for 100 years, and we are moving these changes together.
Yeah.
And then Putin says, I agree. And then she says, take care of yourself, please, dear friend. And then Putin says, happy road. And they smile, wave, and he goes off.
Yeah. And
so that's what they're doing.
Russia is a shadow of what it was during the height of the Cold War. It really is. I mean, sanctions have crippled that country economically. China is the rising partner, but Russia is in a position to be their junior partner, and that is not good for the United States of America. And I said in an earlier podcast, I still believe this, if we had a real leader in the White House, even if it's Bill Clinton, for God's sake, there would have been a negotiation to knock this shit out, right? Knock this shit off. We've got NATO over here. You cannot, in your wildest nightmares, think that NATO is going to attack Russia. That's crazy.
Yeah. And, if we had Donald Trump as president, it wouldn't have happened in the first place.
No,
He's the only president in modern history in the last 4 or 5 where Putin hasn't made advances, under Bush, Obama, and now Biden, he has taken territory, and under Trump he didn't. So,
and my worst nightmares are about China. They're not about Russia anymore. I think Russia's a bunch of goofballs over there. China is where it is. Yet, if you looked at news coverage of the Russian, the American drone that was clipped by a Russian fighter jet, you would think that was a major, major, major story. And yet, we let a Chinese spy balloon slowly go across America for a week and twist and turn to make sure it went to very sensitive American sites.
Yeah.
And not a big deal. We'll wait till it gets over water, then we'll shoot it down. And then Biden goes all Western and starts shooting down a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't a problem. But the Russian drone thing, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Really? Is that a big deal?
I mean, it kind of is, I guess. I'm just kind of confused what's going on here. Like, the plane just flies into our drone? I mean, did that pilot, eject, or what happened here? It's just
No, he landed just fine. The drone went into the bottom of the drink there, and I guess they're looking for it to try and get whatever technology is on it.
What did the Russian jet didn't fly into the drone? It flew, over it or something?
I think it clipped it, is what happened here. Yeah. But I mean, those drones are big enough. He saw the drone. It's not like it's
right.
He saw it.
Well, yeah, you can see him. Turn into it. So.
I don't know. I just think that the bigger issue is that the Chinese spy balloon went over us. I think China is the bigger issue than Russia right now, and we've got to figure out how to get out of Ukraine. We got to get that thing wrapped up, and I don't think Joe Biden has any plan for it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say they're both issues, but we shouldn't be allowing either one to happen. But,
Origins of COVID passes both houses of Congress. In fact, it passed unanimously in the House of Representatives. That is an amazing thing. It sat on Joe Biden's desk for a while, and one of the questions I had coming into this podcast, which has already been resolved, is will Joey B. sign it? I don't think he had any choice. I mean, you talk about overriding a veto. Yeah. He did veto something. He vetoed and we can get in. I was going to get into that next week because there's a whole bunch of stuff swirling around that. But the whole deal about how, you can use equity and wokeness and all this other stuff.
ESG.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff. We're going to get into that next week. But he vetoed that bill because he said, we're not going to have Marjorie Taylor Greene tell us what to do. I mean, nothing about what he did was good. It's about, I'm not going to let Marjorie Taylor Greene tell me what to do.
Yeah. I mean, the COVID bill, I think, was signed by everybody. I don't think there was any no votes from what I saw.
No, there weren't.
So for him to veto that, I mean, not only would it be overridden by Congress to veto, but it would be political suicide for him to, veto that.
I don't think he cares about political suicide. I don't know what in the hell he's doing there.
Yeah.
Government, really, believe it or not, government is supposed to make life better for people, okay? Or in my world, at least not get in the way, right? Do what
at least
you do.
not make it worse.
Don't make it worse. Yet everything that Joe Biden seems like he is doing is making life worse, and now we know that washing machines are the problem. So we're going to have dirty clothes in Joe Biden's America.
Yeah. No, first it was gas stoves, now washing machines, apparently. This is from the article from the Washington Free Beacon. I can read it if you want. Biden's Energy Department last month proposed new efficiency standards for washing machines that would require new appliances to use considerably less water, all in an effort to confront the global climate crisis. Those mandates would force manufacturers to reduce cleaning performance to ensure their machines comply, leading industry giants such as Whirlpool. That said, in public comments on the rule, they also make the appliances more expensive and laundry day a headache. Each cycle will take longer, detergent will cost more, and in the end, the clothes will be less clean, the manufacturers say.
And the little guy pays for it.
Yeah.
Just like his tax plan. He rolled out a tax the rich plan at a time of record revenue to the Treasury. Think about that for a second. Record revenue to the Treasury. So we have a spending problem in this country. And you know how trickle down works. Because when you tax the big guys, when you tax corporations, which he loves to do because he loves playing play number 2 in the Democrat playbook, somebody else has something you don't have, and that's not fair. Okay? Every time he does that, you know, when you tax a company, what do? They don't pay taxes. They pass it on to the consumer, the person using the service, the end user, which is people like us. So to say that your taxes won't go up if you make less than $400,000 a year is an absolute crock. And again, government is not supposed to make your life more difficult. At the very least, they're not supposed to make it worse. And it's like everything he is doing is making life worse.
And it's also more than just taxes, right? I mean, look at the cost of goods. Look at inflation. There's so much more things. Like, it's almost like people are not even really talking about taxes anymore because the problem now is just the cost of living, you know, the cost
which
of
is a tax.
A gallon of milk,
right.
The cost of a carton of eggs, you know, all those things are going to go up too. You know, you charge more, you make it more difficult to, you know, do a washing machine or whatever, or you charge people more in taxes at the top. Like you said, that's going to trickle down to the consumer, and you might not see it that as increased taxes, but you're going to see it as increased cost of, you know, goods, services, energy, things like that, you know, which are already going up at an astronomical rate, are going to continue to do.
And now these idiots are talking about reparations, and they've got no plan to pay for it. Okay, so we're going to give you millions and millions and millions of dollars to make up for the original sin in this country of slavery. We don't know who we're going to give it to. We don't know how we're going to do it or how we're going to pay for it. Hell, we'll just print more money. What do you think that does to inflation? We talked about this. The inflation we have right now is because of all of the COVID spending, all the free money that went out for COVID. And they want to, you know, forgive student loan bills and now reparations. All that money will add up and stack up and make everything more expensive.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's just time, you know, my wife and I have been talking a lot about this because the traditional methods of saving money are just not viable anymore. You know, like putting your money into a savings account or even like a CD or something like that. You know, the rate of inflation is at or higher than the rate of growth in most of these savings accounts. So it's like, what are you going to do? You have to invest. You have to put your money elsewhere because it's just not, you're losing money, like just by having it, you know, it's crazy.
And we've had a couple of banks fail. I know I skipped over that, and I'm doing stuff out of order here. 2 banks have failed. Whose fault is that? Believe it or not, it's not Trump's fault. Usually that's one of the plays in the very short liberal playbook, but one of the most liberal senators in the Senate, she's going after Jerome Powell.
Pretty clear you don't have confidence in Jay Powell. Do you think the president should fire him?
Look, my views on Jay Powell are well known at this point. He has had 2 jobs. One is to deal with monetary policy. One is to deal with regulation. He has failed at both.
Right. Would you advise President Biden to replace him?
Look, I don't think he should be chairman of the Federal Reserve. I have said it as publicly as I know how to say it. I've said it to everyone.
Is it me, or does Elizabeth Warren always look like she's been startled?
Yeah.
It's like, huh? What?
I can't see her without thinking of just like Native American jokes, you know?
Well, she does have high cheekbones.
Yeah, it's just like, Chairman Powell, no good. He, like buffalo on plane, disappear.
Oh, that's so racist.
I'm sorry.
I can't believe you just did that. All right, Trump, the Donald Trump update. As of this moment in time, and it could change, he has not been indicted or arrested. But, and you've got the folks in New York, they're setting up barricades and stuff like that.
I'll turn the sound off here so you can talk over it.
Donald Trump, he's the one who came out and told his people, I'm going to be arrested on Tuesday, right? Yeah. And it's almost like they're playing into his hand. And yet you've got the left media out there, and I would put it this way. I'm trying to be very inclusive, okay, Kurt? I'm working on this. I'm working on myself, trying to be inclusive. The left is getting moist over this. The left is getting hard over this.
Oh, boy.
And, some of the leftists are both. They get moist and they get hard.
Depending on what they identify as that particular day.
Yeah. Al Franken was the one that cracked me up the most because somebody gave him a show somewhere, right? The former funny guy from Saturday Night Live. He was a senator from Minnesota, and now he's got a show somewhere. Somebody's got more money than sense giving that guy a show. And he was making a big deal out of, because all they want out of this, Kurt, they don't think in their wildest dreams that Donald Trump is going to be behind bars over something this silly. And we get into the specifics of it and all that. All they want is the mugshot. They want a picture of Donald Trump, first president ever. I mean, he's had so many firsts. He was the first one impeached not once but twice, and now they'd love to have a mugshot. So Franken sets up this deal. It's like, okay, we're gonna get you. We're gonna treat you respectfully because you're a former president. Blah 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 blah. And then I'm gonna count to 3 and take your picture. And then when he gets to 3, but right before 3, he goes, "Turn on the fan!" And they get this picture of Trump's hair blowing all over the place, wearing an orange jumpsuit. Ha ha ha. So Al Franken, it's ironic that he would do that with a picture, because it was a picture that got him bounced out of the U.S. Senate. You remember that one, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He was on a military aircraft, and there was a female military officer there. I think she was asleep, right?
Sleeping, yeah.
Yeah. And so he puts his hands on her boobs and looks back at the camera and goes, "Oh, look at me! Oh, look at me!
Oh, boobies!
Jesus, are you kidding me?" And then you got Ron DeSantis, who is the governor of Florida. He threaded the needle perfectly on this, because he's going to run against Trump. He's not announced yet, but he's going to run against Trump. And so he basically had his cake and ate it too, because he got to take a shot at Trump and also take a shot at this DA in Manhattan. He started off by saying, well, I wouldn't know how you deal with hush money to a former porn star to get that out there. And then he went off on Bragg, the DA, and all that. I thought that was the perfect threading of the needle. And when we get to the Republican debates here going into primary season, it's going to be interesting between DeSantis. Oh, here he goes.
If charges are brought on him, will you have...
He's a Soros-funded prosecutor. And so he, like other Soros-funded prosecutors, they weaponize their office to impose a political agenda on society at the expense of the rule of law and public safety. He has downgraded over 50% of the felonies to misdemeanors. He says he doesn't want to even have jail time for the vast, vast majority of crimes. And what we've seen in Manhattan is we've seen the crime rate go up, and we've seen citizens become less safe. And so you're talking about this situation with, and look, I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that. But what I can speak to is that if you have a prosecutor who is ignoring crimes happening every single day in his jurisdiction, and he chooses to go back many, many years ago to try to use something about porn star hush money payments, that's an example of pursuing a political agenda.
All right.
I think that's a mistake. I really do.
Which part of it's a mistake?
Him trying to, dig at Trump. I mean, it's every time that someone has tried to lower themselves to get in the mud with Trump, they lose every time.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, and here's I have a problem with Trump, and it's psychological on my part. But as I look at it from 30,000 feet, Kurt,
you talk about
one of the things that really grates on me, because I got fired because of this once. Okay, I don't like ass kissers or name droppers. Okay, it was an ass kisser who got me fired in 1992. Okay, And a name dropper, that's another part of my psychology there. That's somebody, and I work with somebody occasionally, and I'm not going to name names here, who is both. It's the worst combination of human being.
Do I know this person?
Kisser and a name dropper. No, I don't think you know this person. And I'm not going to narrow it down any further than that. Ass kisser and name dropper. Because the only way that you can stay in Donald Trump's circle, Kurt, is to kiss his ass. And when you stop kissing his ass, the first time you do anything that he doesn't like, he's like the emperor. When you don't kiss his ass, he throws you out. And I worked with a guy here at Steel City for a very long time who also had that same kind of a deal. He had a circle. And when you didn't kiss his ass anymore, or he perceived that you crossed him, you were dead to him. He put you outside the circle. And my problem with Donald Trump is he's put about half the Republican Party outside the circle.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely some truth to that. I also think, to sort of play devil's advocate here, I do think that a lot of people have backstabbed him, and
Well, that's politics. If you don't want to be in politics, get a dog. Politics is
right,
not beanball.
But sure, but if people are,
he plays for keeps.
But if
it's not the kind of stuff, Kurt, that you can say, okay, well, that was that campaign. Now we're all going to unite under the Republican flag, and we're going to go forward together. That happens all the time in politics. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump plays for keeps.
Yeah, well, I mean, is that a problem?
Yeah, that's a problem, because we're going to have a united Republican Party to win in 2024. We're going to have to get moderates to come on board, those people in the middle who determine elections, because the Democrats aren't going to vote for us. They're just not. Maybe you'll get some, if you get the right nominee, and I'm not saying DeSantis is the right nominee, there might be somebody else, but if you get the right nominee, you might get a group of people that used to be called Reagan Democrats who might come across and vote for whoever that nominee is. Democrats are not going to vote for Donald Trump. The middle's not going to vote for Donald Trump. And because he plays keeps the way he does, he's split the Republican Party in half.
Can I ask you a hypothetical question that has nothing to do with Trump? I don't want you to think that I'm talking about Trump, so I'm putting that out there right away. Do you think that it's smart politically to sacrifice policy or more conservative ideals in favor of, quote unquote, reaching across the aisle or broadening the tent to get more voters?
I think that in politics, you try and get the whole sandwich, but you settle for half the sandwich. And I know that you think that Donald Trump was the best president in the history of this country. You think he did all these wonderful things in 4 years. But I can show you. I mean,
I never said that.
We had Vivek. Help me with the last
Ramaswamy.
name. I'm going to have to really struggle with that. But he raises a great point. The president of the United States, no matter who he is, can sign an executive order and end the practice of help me out here.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
He can also sign an executive order and shut down the Department of Education.
He can. And Donald Trump didn't do either one of those things.
That's true.
Why didn't he do that?
But lots of people have campaigned on saying that they would do all those things, and none of them have. So.
Why didn't he? I mean, if he's, the be-all, end-all, why didn't he do it?
I'm not even talking about Trump. It's just a hypothetical question.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation to have conservative principles versus reaching across the aisle or finding someone who we think we can win.
Right. I don't think Donald Trump is as conservative as you think he is. I think if you looked at his policies, okay,
I don't think he's a conservative really at all.
I think his policies are very moderate and right down the middle. And if he'd put his damn phone away, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because he would have been reelected in a landslide.
Well, I don't know about that.
I think he would have been if he'd stayed off the damn phone, and just look at what he did policy-wise, which was right down the middle for this country. And I'm just telling you, if we end up and this whole thing with the DA in Manhattan and all that may well elevate him. It may help him get the nomination and all that.
Well, yeah, you were talking about the DA or the Democrats looking for a mugshot, of Trump, like. You don't think that's going to help his campaign?
Oh, of course it will.
It's going to be the front page of every Trump, rally, every Trump presser from here until November 2024.
And if I could sit down with Donald Trump, number one, he wouldn't like me because I'm not going to kiss his ass. He loves ass kissers. Every time he goes in front of the microphones, Kurt, he talks about Donald Trump and who likes Donald Trump and who's done this to Donald Trump and who's been unfair to Donald Trump. And I'm so sick of that, and I think America is sick of that. But if he would let me sit down and talk to him, I would say, look, you had all these policies that worked for America. Stop talking about yourself, okay? You've got to heal the Republican Party. You've got to get the middle to come along, and then you win in a landslide. His psychology would never let him do that, and that's why he won't win.
Fair enough. I mean, I agree with some of that. Not all of it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So we'll see what follows from here. But as far as this DA goes, I mean, he's taken something that first of all, is hush money to a former porn star a crime? Now take some of the buzzwords out of this, and let's say that you've got somebody who you don't want to talk about you. Okay, so you have them sign a non-disclosure agreement, and you give them some money in return for that.
Right.
How's that a crime? That happens all the time. Bill Clinton did that.
Yeah, that in itself is obviously not a crime. I think what they're trying to say is that he, incorrectly filed it or something like that. I don't really understand it, to be honest. But
what they're saying is it's a violation of federal election law, but the FEC doesn't want anything to do with this. No one wants anything to do with this. This is a Manhattan borough prosecutor who is trying to make a name for himself.
Right. Yeah, and I think the point is that it was made as a campaign contribution to himself, I believe, or that's how it was filed. So
I don't think it gets out of court. All they want is a mugshot.
Yeah,
and a perp walk.
It's just it's so obvious though to anyone who's paying attention and anyone who's honest with themselves that this is politically motivated. The phrase is, which we may or may not watch this Dershowitz clip, but
I want to watch the Dershowitz because he's a Democrat, by the way, and he just blows holes completely through this. In fact, if I'm Donald Trump, I want this guy as my lawyer.
You want to watch it now?
Yeah, Jim.
You talk about how this is bigger than Trump, about if you're able to do this to political opponents and dissidents, it sets bad precedent, it allows prosecutors to go above and beyond, and it actually makes us less free.
Without a doubt. There was a South American dictator who said, for my friends, everything, for my enemies, the law. You can use the law to get anybody, as Justice Jackson said, or as the KGB had said, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. This is the worst example in my 60 years of practicing criminal law, of targeting somebody for prosecution and then rummaging through the books, giving people immunity, and trying to concoct a crime that doesn't exist. And if this is allowed to succeed, none of our liberties is safe. Today it's a Republican who's a target. Tomorrow it's a Democrat. And the day after tomorrow, it's your Uncle Charlie or your nephew or your niece.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be no limits on what prosecutors can do to their political enemies. And they're going to do it to people who are running against them for DA next. And it's just such a violation. And not only a violation of American law and civil liberties, it's actually a violation of the Bible. The Bible instructs judges two things. Don't take bribes, that's obvious. But the number one thing is don't recognize faces. And don't.
That's exactly right. Yes, do not favor anyone in a court. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, continue. Yeah. Sorry.
And
no, that's why it violates.
Yeah, we stop it there.
Yeah, I mean, they've been after Trump since day one.
Yeah.
And, we've got a president, Joe Biden, and there were a lot of people who thought, well, when the Republicans come in, the first thing they're going to do is impeach Biden just to get back at him. And they haven't done that. Mm-hmm. They're investigating the Biden family. And while this circus is going on, what's not being talked about are the millions of dollars that went from Chinese companies to the Biden family. For what? What was, the best question I heard raised was, what's the product coming out of the Biden family that Chinese companies would pay millions of dollars for?
Influence.
Yeah, well, which is corruption, which, and nobody's talking about that because we're all talking about a former porn star and a payoff to a porn star so she wouldn't talk.
I mean, the point that Dershowitz makes there, which is so true, is that, show me the man, I'll find you the crime.
Exactly.
And it's, you can look at any of these people, certainly Obama, certainly Biden, certainly the Clintons, certainly, Ted Kennedy freaking drowned a girl in a river. And he was still a senator for 30 years after that.
Ran for president.
So and now we're going after Trump, for this. It's just it's blatant political motivation, and it's really sick. It's really sick. And I have a lot of questions about the 2020 election and its legitimacy. If this goes through, if they try and arrest Trump, and make him not necessarily ineligible to run for president, but make it difficult for him to run for president, I mean, elections are over, man. Like, I hate to be blackpilled about it, but democracy, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes with my fingers, is just done. It's just dead in America, and forget about it.
Well, Joe Biden, I've said this before, I don't think you agree with me, but I think the only way Joe Biden wins re-election in 2024 is if Donald Trump's on the ballot.
No, I definitely don't agree with that. But
okay, you don't think any other Republican would beat Joe Biden?
Well, I certainly don't think, Nikki Haley.
I think she could. No. Why not Nikki Haley?
Because she's lame. She's boring. She's
according to you. If she's the nominee of the party, why would you wouldn't support her?
According to everyone, we need somebody that's going to motivate people to vote. I mean, we're in very difficult times right now, and her whole thing of I'm gonna like, it's like the same thing that Biden did, and I mean it worked for Biden because he was running against Trump. But
Biden's going to do the same thing. He's going to go to the basement. He's not going to campaign. We need somebody on the Republican side that people want to vote for, not vote against. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump did not win 2020 because too many people voted against him. Now, you may not like that. You may want to dig deep on that. And I was supportive of taking every legal maneuver possible to figure out whether there was any funny business that went on in 2020. There was not. Every case was thrown out of court. Okay, so we need somebody who people are going to want to vote for, not vote against. And there were people in 2022 in the midterm who voted against Donald Trump by proxy. We need somebody people are going to vote for.
And you think they would be more likely to vote for Nikki Haley
than Joe Biden? Absolutely.
Than Donald Trump.
No. You're putting a straw man argument up here. If you're going to say Nikki Haley is the nominee, it won't be Donald Trump. It will be Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden. Nikki Haley wins that election. I don't think she's going to be the nominee, but my point is anybody on the Republican side would beat Joe Biden because it wouldn't be the circus that follows Donald Trump around. It would be, okay, well, let's talk about your ideas. And our ideas beat their ideas because they don't have any damn ideas. All they have is Donald Trump in an orange jumpsuit.
I mean, the
Tell me I'm wrong. Poke a hole in that.
Well, I mean, there's many ways to, but one thing that I'll mention is, the sad, or it's not sad, but it's just the reality of American politics is like, we are doing a political podcast right now. Mm-hmm. We care about policy. We know what's going on. We follow the news. Most people are not like that. Most people are motivated by very simple things: charisma, patriotism, energy. These type of things that Donald Trump has in spades that Nikki Haley does not. And it's not that she's, I don't think she's really that conservative, if I'm being honest, but it's not that she's not, a Republican or she's not going to, govern more conservatively than Joe Biden, but she just is not going to motivate people who are not interested in politics. She goes out there and she's like, oh, I'm a brown woman. Isn't that exciting? And everyone yawns and rolls their eyes. Nobody cares.
Well, you're setting up a straw man argument because you're saying if it's not Donald Trump, it's got to be Nikki Haley. And I don't think that's true.
No, I just used her as an example.
Of course you are. So here's what I will say. Because of ideas and because of policy and what I believe in, I am going to support the Republican nominee for president, even if it's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Now,
and I'll support it even if it's Nikki Haley.
The converse of that is Donald Trump would tell you if it's not Donald Trump, I'm not going to support the nominee.
I don't know about that.
I think that's true.
I don't know. I mean, okay. That's his decision to make.
I think he's already made that decision. He's already said things like, well, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. He's giving himself wiggle room to not support the nominee if it's not him.
Right, but I also think there's nothing wrong with not making a decision. It's like people who want to come out and fully put their support behind somebody for the nomination. It's just, you're setting yourself up for embarrassment, really, I think, by doing that.
Let's see how it plays out. We got a long time
exactly,
and many podcast episodes to get through. Today's
exactly.
episode is, whether Trump's going to be in an orange jumpsuit with a mugshot or not, and we still don't know that, and we'll find out. Let's move on. The legislative blotter. This is something I really wanted to dig into because, again, there were people who said if the Republicans won the House of Representatives, it would be the end of the world as we know it. And the first bill in the legislative calendar for the new Congress is called H.R. 1. So when the Democrats took over in 2021, they had the House of Representatives, they had H.R. 1. And when the Republicans took over in 2023, they had H.R. 1. I want you to see the difference between when the Democrats took over to when the Republicans took over. Because the first bill that Nancy Pelosi brought in that Congress was federalizing American elections and cementing the COVID rules. Mm-hmm. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to take elections away from states and localities and make them a federal deal and take all of this funny money business or funny business, whatever you want to call it, that happened during COVID, and they wanted to cement it because you know what? It worked for them. They did well with that.
Yeah, they won an election based off it.
And it failed. So when the Republicans took over in 2023, H.R. 1 was reducing energy costs and restoring American energy independence. Gee, that sounds like something we want, right?
Yeah.
Definitely
better than the other one.
So that's the difference when you look at policy and you strip away all of the circus that's going on, what really matters? Democrats are more about what can we do to keep power? How can we keep power? And Republicans are like, what can we do to make America better? Mm-hmm. And then you've got a president right now who's turned MAGA into a slur.
Ultra MAGA.
Yeah, why would we want to make America great again? Jeez, right. We love it the way it is. Hyperinflation, everything costs more. We're putting out an energy policy that's based on wind and solar and rainbow farts. And, we've got all this energy right here in America. We're not going to tap into that. What, are you nuts? And then, you can go back to videos on John Kerry and Al Gore in the 90s. I saw two videos on this and you don't have to look for them, but they were on the Senate floor talking about how we were going to have a summer within the next 5 years where the polar ice caps were going to completely melt.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
No. And there was a tweet that I didn't see the tweet, but apparently our favorite Greta Thunberg, had to take down a tweet that was from like 2015 or something where she said that by 2022,
they keep pushing the goalpost.
It's like by next year we're all going to be dead. No, by next year we're all going to be dead.
I mean, here's a fact for all my liberal friends. This is a fact that I don't think anybody can debate. The Earth is about 5 billion years old, okay?
Fake news.
It's been in a constant state of change for 5 billion years. We have weather information for the last 200. 200 is a small number. 5 billion is a very big number. And it's like, and I've said this before, but I believe this to my core. They want you to believe that we can find the Goldilocks number, okay? And if we just all drive electric cars, and if we use wind, and solar, we're going to make America to the point, and the world really, to where 75 will be the high every day, 55 will be the low every night. We won't need air conditioning. We won't need heat. It's going to be Goldilocks. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be paradise. That is complete and utter horseshit.
All we have to do is live in the pod and eat the bugs and give up all of our personal belongings.
It's the first time...
Is that too much to ask?
It's probably the first time in world history where science and innovation have not led the way on whatever we're going to do that's going to be the next big thing. It's a bunch of politicians who don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're leading the way. And we've got to put an end to this. And that's why policy really matters, and that's why we talk about it a lot. Okay, the legislative blotter continues. This gets to state laws that are out there. Georgia has a bill, and I don't know if it's been signed yet or not. Last I heard, it was going through a revision in the Senate. But the Georgia bill is to keep parents from surgically altering their children. We need a law to keep parents from surgically altering their children. Now, I raised 4. I've been a parent. You have not been a parent yet. Kurt, when you become a parent and you've got a kid and they come to you with something that's just completely ridiculous, you say no.
Right.
Practice that a lot before you have kids, saying no, because you're going to say it a lot.
I'm pretty good at that already. So
I know parents out there who are like, oh, really? Is that what you want? Okay, well, let's find a way to do it. Mm-hmm. And there are parents out there whose they may have a confused young girl who says, I think I want to be a guy. Okay, well, let's get your boobs cut off and let's get your plumbing redirected. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous.
Should be criminal.
Well, it should be. And in Georgia, that it's come to that. They've got to pass that bill. So that's going on. Arizona has a bill to keep drag queen shows out of grade schools.
Wow.
Really?
Racist.
We need to have a law to keep drag queen shows out of grade schools?
And it's funny because, you know, I've watched some clips of opponents to this stuff, and they come out and they'll say, like, well, it's not the government's place to get in between a doctor and parents and children. And it's like, yeah, it is actually. Like when you're talking about physically, you know, mutilating somebody or, you know, it is the government's place. I mean, we have things that are illegal for a reason. It's illegal to harm people. Well, and it's supposed to be, as a doctor, as a healthcare provider, your mantra is supposed to be do no harm. You're supposed to be a health care provider, meaning providing care for health, not mutilating people. And yeah, the government absolutely has a role in determining what that means.
And, you know, we've talked about this before, and I know you probably don't agree with me 100% on this, but I think when you're an adult, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. That's the beauty of this country. You have life, liberty, and the pursuit of whatever makes you happy. But when you're a child and your brain isn't fully formed yet, you have parents who are supposed to stand in for that, whose brains are allegedly fully formed, and no is a word that you say a lot as a parent, and you need to say no as a parent. It sets up walls for these kids, so when they become adults, they understand. Mm-hmm. That's either that or as a parent, it's just fun to say no. I don't know. But drag queen shows, Arizona, we talked about that. Then I saw this, Texas A&M has banned a drag queen show on campus. You know why they banned the show, Kurt?
I don't.
Because they said it was demeaning to women. They equated it with doing a show in blackface.
I mean, it basically is the exact same thing.
Why would you do a show in blackface? Well, why would you demean women by having men dress up like women?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that I've made that comparison myself, and I'm not the first to make it to friends and things. It's like, yeah, it's literally blackface. It's woman blackface. And a common response that I'll get is, well, but blackface, you know, is demeaning. It's demeaning to black people, and it's meant to be like an insult. And it's like, okay, well, what if like somebody just wants to dress up as, you know, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or something? It's out of reverence, you know. It's not to make fun of them. Would you be okay with that? And of course, the answer is no. So how is it any different? I don't see how it's any different. So
we've talked on the podcast about how government is best practice closest to the problem, whether that's local, you know, city or county or whatever. And I saw this story that Jackson County was hoping to become the first county in the state of Missouri to outlaw so-called conversion therapy. And I was thinking to myself, I live in Jackson County. Is that even in my top 10 for issues that Jackson County ought to be working on? I mean, you know, there's potholes, there's crime, you know, there's probably a lot of things that Jackson County ought to be working on. Conversion therapy and outlawing it doesn't really come to mind.
Well, I would ask people that are, you know, supporting this ban, what is conversion therapy? Because, I mean, they give it away in the headline, and the reason that they do this is so that they don't get sued. But you see they put conversion therapy in quotation marks. Mm-hmm. You know what that means? That means it's not a real thing. And even here they say it's already illegal for healthcare providers to practice so-called conversion therapy. They don't just say, if it was a real thing, they would just say conversion therapy. Yeah. And they would point to exactly what it is. No, it's not a real thing. So this is totally
Well, they're trying
useless.
to get on the map. They're trying to get on the news. They're trying to say, oh, Jackson County, we're woke. We're all these wonderful things and all that. I mean, you know, I've thought about this. I thought about it when my kids were little. You know, what if one of them came to me and said they were gay? I'd love them anyway, right? It wouldn't
him
change.
out.
Exactly. I mean, would I take them somewhere and say, "You will not be gay.
We're going to get you
not be gay."
electric shock treatment.
That's ridiculous.
Shock the gay away.
Ridiculous. And the fact that Jackson County's legislature is spending time on this, and one of them, I guess, after the vote failed, said they were going to bring it back. So to be continued on that.
And the liberal playbook, too. It's like the vote to ban this is going to fail because it's not a real thing and nobody cares. And then the response is going to be, oh, well, you support conversion therapy?
Yeah.
You homophobe.
There you go. There you go. That's got to be one of the plays, too. All right. Again, I want to say a shout out to Bob Watson, our Blue Springs State Farm agent for 5 decades, 7th and Main in Blue Springs, 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance, even boats. And we're getting close to boat season. It's springtime in Kansas City. Can't wait for that. Licensed in Missouri and Kansas. A really good guy with an awesome staff who's going to take your phone calls whenever you need them and all of your insurance needs. Surprisingly great rates at State Farm. Doesn't cost an arm and a leg to have a staff like Bob's on your side there. And when we do the thing at Funhouse Pizza next time, I'm sure Bob's going to be there. You get a chance to meet him. And Lisa Schifferdecker, who I met on the plane, said she's thinking about using Bob for all of her insurance needs.
I was going to say, it sounds like he has a new client. So
there you go. This podcasting thing, it really does work. And Bob's office is right down the street from the Blue Springs Police Department. And last week, and it was well received. I got a lot of feedback on this of Doug Heisman from the Blue Springs Police Department being on, talking about what cops are going through these days, and also the Citizens Police Academy. This is it that cities like Blue Springs offer. What are you going to play the whole thing? What are you doing here?
No, I'm just pulling it up.
Okay. Well, there's Doug, there's me, and the police do go through a lot these days. And I probably put Doug in a couple of uncomfortable situations there because he doesn't speak for all cops. He works for a great agency in Blue Springs where the government's got his back. He's not worried about defunding the police in a town like Blue Springs. It was a great chat with Doug, and to bounce off of that, we have an update on policing, and it's not good. More officers injured on the job trying to just deliver a warrant. There were 3 in Kansas City. There were 3 in Los Angeles. And these are just officers trying to execute a warrant to a bad guy. And they walk into a situation, and you never know what you're going to deal with. And then our president, says things like, well, cops need to, shoot him in the leg. You have no idea what you're dealing with.
Yeah, even just the traffic stop. I got a speeding ticket. I shouldn't say that out loud probably, but I'll edit that out. A couple weeks ago. And, the cop came up to the car, and he didn't have his hand on his gun, but he's they do this thing where they kind of have their hands by their side,
right,
walking up to the car like they're ready to go. And it's if in a vacuum maybe you'd be like, oh, what's this guy some gunslinger, why is he acting so cautious, or why is he being so paranoid? But having all of this understanding of what's going on and how criminals are being let out of prison and how much the cops are under attack right now, it's understandable.
Yeah. Well, let me just give you a name that might fuel that as to why cops may be a little antsy right now. Officer Daniel Vasquez from North Kansas City. He was doing a routine traffic stop of Joshua Rocha, who had expired tags. We talked a lot about expired tags on this thing, and Rocha didn't want to get in trouble for that, so his answer was to shoot Officer Vasquez 5 times and kill him. And the Clay County Prosecuting Attorney's Office has announced that they will seek the death penalty against Rocha. I guess we're glad it didn't happen in Jackson County because we don't know how Gene Peters Baker would deal with it.
Yeah, or in, some other state.
What we know about Jackson County is that Officer Mulbauer, remember him? He was the canine officer who was killed by an out-of-control driver, also killed, a pedestrian who was there as well. Mulbauer's widow, Cassie, now is calling for an independent prosecutor because she and other cops in Kansas City don't trust Gene Peters Baker to deliver justice. How sad is that?
Yeah, it's very sad.
I heard Dershowitz talking about something which I agree with wholeheartedly. The United States is one of the few, maybe the only democracy in the world where we elect prosecutors. We don't appoint them. In other countries like Great Britain, Israel, other democracies in the world, that's a civil service job, and it's appointed. And those people are there just following the rules, doing their job as they're supposed to do. In this country, we elect these clowns. And when you elect these clowns, they want to get their picture in the paper.
So maybe that's a problem, is what you're saying.
Exactly. I mean, maybe that's something we need to change. We need to stop electing these people, make it a civil service job, and just appoint people who are going to follow the law, as Dershowitz says, with blinders on.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem, with democracy generally, too. I mean, there's a reason why we don't live in a pure democracy is because some things shouldn't be up for a vote. And when you're talking about people's lives, and dealing with violent criminals and letting them out of prison. And we're about to watch a video of the DC police chief talking about that exact thing. Maybe we shouldn't have people in very liberal cities who are very easily manipulated by propaganda, Soros-funded, campaigns and all of these things, PR campaigns, to have them vote for people who are just going to get into office and do a terrible job of controlling crime. Maybe we should change that.
Well, the DA in Manhattan is a Soros-funded guy, and he's tried to do everything he can to make New York soft on crime. And but we got to go after Donald Trump because we got to get Donald Trump, and I'm going to be the guy that gets Donald Trump, and my picture's going to be in the paper, and I'm going to get reelected. Hell, I'm going to run for governor of New York, right?
There you go.
Oh my God! All right. Meanwhile, 8 people dead in a mass shooting, not in this country, in Germany. What's going on there? I thought that only happened in America.
Yeah, I guess not.
All right. And then in Kansas City, we have a man arrested for beating a man to death with a bolt attached to a strap, which proves my point, Kurt, that the gun is not the issue. If you're a bad guy wanting to do a bad thing, you're going to find a way to do it. Maybe it's going to be a car. Maybe you're going to run over a cop, a canine cop, and kill 2 heroes and a pedestrian. Maybe you're going to be like this thug and basically attach a bolt to a strap and beat the hell out of another guy until he's dead. I mean, bad people will do bad things.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the D.C. police chief, I know you're itching to run this clip, and I love it, because he is the police chief in Washington, D.C. Now, this is the city, by the way, it's rampant with crime. And their city council passed an ordinance to make several crimes no longer felonies, to make them misdemeanors. Even if you committed the crime with a gun, it would be a misdemeanor. It got so bad that Congress, which has oversight of the District of Columbia, had to step in, and Joe Biden even backed them in the deal. That's how bad it got. This is the police chief of Washington, D.C. He's going to say something so astounding, it's going to be like a I should have had a V8 moment.
Guns off the street. What we got to do, if we really want to see homicides go down, is keep bad guys with guns in jail.
What?
Because when they in jail, they can't be in community shooting people.
What?
So when people talk about what we're going to do different or what we should do different, what we need to do different, that's the thing that we need to do different. We need to keep violent people in jail. Right now, the average homicide suspect has been arrested 11 times prior to them committing a homicide.
Yeah.
That is a problem.
How many times?
That is a problem.
All right, I believe you. How many times has that happened in Kansas City, where they've got a turnstile? I mean, I know enough cops in Kansas City to tell you they continue to arrest people. And early on in this podcast, I know that I made this statement. I don't know if you agreed with this or not, but basically I had 2 ways to clean all this up. You commit a crime with a gun, any crime, with a gun, you go to jail for a very long time. Whatever the minimum you want to be, there's no negotiation. You go to jail for a very long time. You commit a murder with a gun, not self-defense, but if you, by a jury, are convicted of a murder with a gun, you go away for the rest of your life, into a box, and you never see the light of day again. We'll clean this up in 1 generation, and the police chief of Washington, D.C. agrees with me.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe not on the specifics of it, but it seems like he agrees with me. So before we leave you on this episode of Dale Carter's America, I wanted to revisit the Oscars. It's been a while. I didn't even look up what the ratings were on the Oscars, but they know that they've got a ratings problem on the Oscars. And I'll tell you, Kurt, back in the day, we used to program the radio station with the Oscars in mind, we would know that we can't really do anything the Monday after the Oscars because people are going to be up late watching this thing. It's going to be must-see TV, and people aren't going to get up early on Monday. Now we don't even know when the Oscars are. And they know, well, they know they've got a problem, right? Yeah. So it used to be in the old days that Best Picture, they would give you 5 nominees. You know what the number is now?
3?
10.
Oh, wow.
You know why it's 10? Because they've got to throw in some stuff to give you hope that something you actually saw is going to win an Oscar. That's how the Top Gun movie got nominated. Of course it didn't win. I saw the list of winners. I didn't see any of the movies. I doubt any of you listening to this podcast saw any of the movies. In fact, I was looking on Amazon Prime. They're all available for free right now because nobody will pay to see that garbage that won the Oscars. And then, of course, MSNBC could not leave well enough alone. Do we have a clip on this?
No, we don't, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, you got something pulled up there. I didn't know
it's just an article.
Okay. Yeah. So the geniuses at MSNBC, which has a CUM, which in the radio world means an audience number of maybe 2 or 3 people, they refer to the insidious nature of Top Gun. The insidious nature. You know why it's insidious? Because people who went to see it came out of it feeling pretty good about America.
Yeah, MSNBC opinion editor Zishan Alim recently condemned Top Gun Maverick as the most insidious movie at the Oscars because it shows the U.S. military as a beacon of virtue. She, I don't even know, trashed the Best Picture nominee in a Saturday morning column for painting America's military in a positive light, lamenting that the literal propaganda, as he described it, is poised to become canonized as a highly decorated film.
Yeah, well, it didn't. It didn't win any Oscars. Come on, you didn't really think it would win any Oscars. You may think of it as insidious. We at Dale Carter's America, we love our military. We support our military. We thank our military for keeping us safe and free. And until next week when we gather again on this podcast, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.